Krishnamurti, in dialogue with Dr. Alan W. Anderson. J. Krishnamurti was born in South India and educated in England. For the past 40 years, he has been speaking in the United States, Europe, India, Australia, and other parts of the world. From the outset of his life's work, he repudiated all connections with organized religions and ideologies and said that his only concern was to set men absolutely, unconditionally free. He is the author of many books, among them The Awakening of Intelligence, The Urgency of Change, Freedom from the Known, and The Flight of the Eagle. This is one of a series of dialogues between Krishnamurti and Dr. Alan W. Anderson, who is professor of religious studies at San Diego State University, where he teaches Indian and Chinese scriptures and the oracular tradition. Dr. Anderson, a published poet, received his degree from Columbia University and the Union Theological Seminary. He has been honored with a Distinguished Teaching Award from the California State Universities.
Mr. Krishnamurti, just at the point where we left last time in our conversation, we had raised the question of the distinction between the notion that I must be responsible for my action and just being responsible.
That's it.
I was sitting here thinking to myself, oh, why can't we go on? So perhaps we could start at that point. Would that be agreeable?
Sir, there is a very definite distinction between responsible for and being responsible. If being responsible for implies a direction, a directed will, but the feeling of responsibility implies responsibility for everything, not in a direction, in any one particular direction. Responsible for education, responsible for politics, responsible the way I live, responsible for my behavior. It's a total feeling of complete responsibility, which is the ground in which action takes place.
I think then this takes us back to this business of crisis we were talking about. If the crisis is continuous, then it's misleading to say I'm responsible for my action because I've put the thing out there again, and it becomes an occasion for my confusing what is at hand that requires to be done and the concept of this notion of my action, because I am my action.
Yeah, that's it.
I am it.
That means I am feeling of responsibility expresses itself politically, religiously, educationally, in business, in the whole of life, responsible for the total behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a particular direction. I think there is a great deal of difference. When one says I'm responsible for my action, that means you are responsible for your action according to the idea that you have preconceived about action.
Exactly, yes. People sometimes will say that the child is free because it's not responsible.
Oh, child is you can't take a child.
No, of course not. But I think sometimes when we say this, we have this nostalgia for the past, as though our freedom would be freedom from constraint. Whereas if one is his action genuinely, absolutely, there isn't any restraint at all.
Not at all.
Right.
Because look, if one is has this total feeling of responsibility, then what is your responsibility with regard to your children? It means education. Are you educating them to bring about a mind that conforms to the pattern which the society has established? Which means you accept the immorality of the society that is. If you feel totally responsible, you are responsible from the moment it's born till the moment it dies. It's the right kind of education. Not the education of making the child conform, and worship of success, and the division of nationalities which brings about war. You follow all that you are responsible for. Not just in a particular direction. Even if you are in a particular direction, I'm responsible for my act. What is your action based on? How can you be responsible? When your action is the result of a formula that has been handed down to you.
Yes, I quite follow
Like
what you mean.
Communists, they say the state is responsible. The state, worship the state. The state is the God.
Yes.
And you are responsible to the state. Which means they have conceived what the state should be, formulated ideationally, and according to that you act. That's not responsible action. That's irresponsible action. Whereas action means the doing now, the active present of the verb to do, which is to do now, the acting now. The acting now must be free from the past. Otherwise, you are just repetition, traditionally carrying on. That's not.
I'm reminded of something in the I Ching that I think is a reflection of this principle that you pointed to. I don't mean principle in the abstract. If I'm quoting it correctly from one of the standard translations, it goes like this: the superior man, by which it means the free man, not hierarchically structured, does not let his thoughts go beyond his situation. Which would mean that he simply would be present as he is, not being responsible to something out there that's going to tell him how to be responsible or what he should do. But upon the instant that he is always responsible. His thoughts, he simply does not let his thoughts go beyond his situation. That goes back to that word negation. Because if he won't let his thoughts go beyond his situation, he's negated the possibility for their doing so.
Yes.
Hasn't he?
Correct.
Yes. Oh, yes, I see that. The reason that I'm referring to these other quotations is because if what you're saying is true, and if what they say is true, quite without respect to how they're understood or not understood, then there must be something in common here. And I realize that your emphasis is practical, eminently practical, upon the act. But it does seem to me to be of great value if one could commune with the great literatures, which have so many statements in them that complain about the fact that they're not understood. I see that as a great gain.
Sir, I have not read any books. any literature in the sense,
Yes, I understand.
in that sense. Suppose there is no book in the world.
Problem's the same.
Problem is the same.
Of course, of course.
There is no leader, no teacher, nobody to tell you do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. You are there. You feel totally, completely responsible.
Right. Yes.
Then you have to have an astonishingly active, clear brain. And not befuddled, not puzzled, not bewildered. You must have a mind that thinks clearly. And you cannot think clearly if you are rooted in the past. You are merely continuing, modified perhaps, through the present to the future. That's all. So, from that arises the question, what is the responsibility in human relationship?
Yes, now we're back to relationship.
Because that is the basic foundation of life. Relationship, that is to be related, to be in contact with.
We are presently related.
Related.
This is what is.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, what is human relationship? If I feel totally responsible, how does that responsibility express in relationship? To my children, if I have children, to my family, to my neighbor, whether the neighbor is next door or 10,000 miles away, is still my neighbor. So what is my responsibility? What is the responsibility of a man who feels totally, completely involved in this feeling of being a light to himself and totally responsible? I think this is a question, sir, that has to be investigated.
Yes, I'm. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that only a person responsible, as you have said it, can make what we call in our tongue a clean decision.
Of course, of course.
So many decisions are frayed.
Sir, I would like to ask this. Is there a decision at all? Decision implies choice.
Yes.
Choice implies a mind that's confused between this and that.
It means, I think, radically to make a cut, to cut off.
Yes, but a mind that sees clearly has no choice. It doesn't decide. It acts.
Yes. Doesn't this take us back to this word negation again?
Yes, of course.
Might it not be that a clean decision could be interpreted in terms of what takes place at this point of negation?
Yes.
From
But-
which flows a different
But
action.
I don't like to use that word decision. Because the deciding between this and that.
You don't want to use it because of the implications in it of conflict.
Conflict.
I see.
Choice. We think we are free because we choose. We can choose, right? Or is a mind free that is capable of choice? Or is a mind that is not free that chooses? The choice implies between this and that, obviously. Now, which means the mind doesn't see clearly And therefore there is choice. A choice exists when there is confusion.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mind that sees clearly, there is no choice. It is doing. I mean, I think this is where we've got into rather trouble when we say we are free to choose. Choice implies freedom. I say on the contrary. Choice implies a mind that's confused and therefore not free.
What occurs to me now is the difference between regarding freedom as a property or quality of action rather than a state.
Oh,
yes, but we have the notion that freedom is a state, a condition, which is quite different from the emphasis that you're leading me
yes,
into.
That's right.
Yes, yes, yes.
So let's come back to this thing, sir, which is, what is the responsibility of a human being who feels this sense of in relationship? Because relationship is life. Relationship is the foundation of existence. Relationship is absolutely necessary, otherwise you can't exist. Relationship means cooperation. Everything is involved in that one word. Relation means love and generosity and all that's implied. Now, what is a human responsibility in relationship?
If we were genuinely and completely sharing, then responsibility would be present fully,
yes,
would it not?
But how does it express itself in relationship? Not only between you and me now, but between man and woman, between my neighbor, between relationships, to everything, to nature. What's my relationship to nature? Would I go and kill the baby seals?
No, no.
Would I go and destroy human beings, calling them enemies? Would I destroy nature, everything, which man is doing now? He's destroying the earth, the air, the sea, everything, because he feels totally irresponsible.
He sees what is out there as something to operate on.
Yes, which is, he kills the baby seal, which I saw the other day in a film, which is the appalling thing. And a Christian, they call themselves Christians, go and killing a little thing. For somebody's, for some lady who put on the fur.
Mm-hmm.
And you follow the totally immoral the whole thing is. So, to come back, I say, how does this responsibility show itself in my life? I'm married. I'm not, but suppose I'm married. What is my responsibility? Am I related to my wife?
The record doesn't seem very good.
No, not only record, actuality. Am I related to my wife?
Right.
Or am I related to my wife according to the image I have built about her? And I am responsible for that image. You follow, sir?
Yes, because my input has been continuous with respect to that image.
So, I have no relationship with my wife if I have an image about her. Or if I have an image about myself when I want to be successful and all the rest of that business.
Since we were talking about now, being now, there's a point of contact, I take it, between what you're saying and the phrase that you used in one of our earlier conversations, the betrayal of the present.
Absolutely.
Yes. If one...
You see, that is the whole point, sir. If I am related to you, I have no image about you, or you have an image about me. Then we have relationship. We have no relationship if I have an image about myself or about you. Our images have a relationship. But in actuality, we have no relationship. I might sleep with my wife or some, but it is not a relationship. It's a physical contact, sensory excitement, nothing else. So my responsibility is not to have an image.
This brings to mind, I think, one of the loveliest statements in the English language, which I should like to understand in terms of what we have been sharing. These lines from Keats' poem Endymion. There's something miraculous, marvelous in this statement, it seems to me, that's immediately related to what you've been saying. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. And then he says, as though that's not enough, he says its loveliness increases.
Quite.
And then, as though that's not enough, he says it will never pass into nothingness.
Quite.
Now, when the present is not betrayed, it's full with a fullness that keeps on abounding.
It's quite understand.
Would I be correct
Yes, I
in
think
that?
so.
I think that's truly what he must be saying. And one of the things too that passed my mind was he calls it a thing of beauty. He doesn't call it a beautiful thing.
No,
it's a thing of beauty, as though it's a child of beauty. Marvelous continuity between this. Not it's beautiful because I think it's beautiful and therefore it's outside. This. Yes.
Come, I must stick to this because this is really quite important. Because you go where you will, there is no relationship between human beings. And that is the tragedy, and from that arises all our conflict, violence, the whole business. So, when there is this responsibility, the feeling of this responsibility, it translates itself in relationship, which doesn't matter with whom it is, a freedom from the known, which is the image. And therefore, in that freedom, goodness flowers.
Goodness flowers.
And that is the beauty. And that is beauty. Beauty is not an abstract thing, but it goes with goodness. Goodness in behavior, goodness in conduct, goodness in action.
Sometimes while we've been talking, I've started a sentence with if, and I've looked into your eyes, and immediately I got it out. I knew I'd said the wrong thing. It's just like a minute ago, you said if, and you said no, when.
Yes.
Yeah. We're always ifing it up.
I know, ifing it up.
It's awful.
I know. We're always dealing with abstractions rather than with reality.
Immediately we if. A construction is out there which we endlessly talk about.
That's right.
And we get cleverer and cleverer about it. And it has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
Yes.
So, how does this responsibility translate itself in human behavior? You follow, sir?
there would be an end to violence.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't taper off.
You see what we have done, sir? We are violent human beings, sexually, in every way we are violent human beings. And not being able to resolve it, we have created an ideal of not being violent, which is the fact, an abstraction of the fact, which is non-fact, and try to live the non-fact.
Yes. Immediately that produces conflict because it can't be done.
Conflict, misery, confusion, all the rest of it. Now, why does the mind do it? The mind does it because it doesn't know what to do with this fact of violence. Therefore, it's in abstracting the idea of not being violent, postpones action. I am trying not to be violent. And in the meantime, I'm jolly well violent.
Yes.
And it is an escape from the fact. All abstractions are escape from the fact. So, the mind does it because it is incapable of dealing with the fact, or it doesn't want to deal with the fact, or it is lazy and say, well, I'll try and do it some other day. All those are involved when it withdraws from the fact. Now, in the same way, the fact is our relationship is non-existent. I may say to my wife, I love you, I'm etc., etc., but it's non-existent. Because I have an image about her and she has an image about me. So, on abstractions we have lived.
It just occurred to me that the word fact itself, which there have been no end of disquisitions about.
Of course. Fact, what is, let's call it what is.
But actually it means something done.
Done, yes.
Not the record of something, but actually something done, performed, act. And it's that sense of fact that with our use of the word fact, give me facts and figures. We say in English, no, give me facts. We don't mean that when we say it.
No.
If one probably wouldn't need facts and figures in that abstract sense.
So she said,
yes, I
reveals
follow.
a tremendous law.
I follow.
When you feel responsible for education of your children. Not only your children. Are you educating them to conform to a society? Are you educating them to merely acquire a job? Are you educating them to the continuity of what has been? Are you educating them to live in abstractions, as we are doing now? So what is your responsibility as a father, mother, doesn't matter who you are, responsible in an education, for the education of a human being? That's one problem. What is your responsibility if you feel responsible for human growth, human culture, human goodness? What's your responsibility to the earth? To nature? You follow? It is a tremendous thing to feel responsible.
This just came to mind, which I must ask you about. the word negation in the book that we looked at earlier, which is continuous with what we're saying, I think is itself rather endangered by the usual notion that we have of negation, which is simply a prohibition, which is not meant.
No.
Which is not meant.
Of course not.
When we reviewed that incident in the Gita between the general and his charioteer, the Lord Krishna, the Lord's response was a negation without it being a prohibition.
Quite.
Wasn't it?
I don't know.
No. I mean, in terms of what we just got through
of
seeing.
course,
Yes. There's a difference then between rearing a child in terms of relating to the child radically in the present, in which negation, as is mentioned in the book here that we went through, is continuously and immediately and actively present, and simply walking around saying to oneself, now I'm rearing a child, therefore I mustn't do these things, and I mustn't do those things, I must do that. Exactly. An entirely different thing. But
so
one has to break the habit of seeing negation as prohibition.
And also, you see, with responsibility goes love, care, attention.
Yes, earlier I was going to ask you about care in relation to responsibility. Something that would flow immediately, naturally. Yes. Not something that I'd have to project that I needed to care for later.
Yeah.
And so I won't forget. But I would be with it. Yes.
See, that involves a great deal too, because the mother depends on the child. And the child depends on the mother or the father, whatever it is. So that dependence is cultivated. Not only between the father and the mother, but depend on a teacher. Depend on somebody to tell you what to do. Depend on your guru.
Yes,
so
I'm
gradually the child, the man, is incapable of standing alone. And therefore he says, I must depend on my wife for my comfort, for my sex, for my this or that and the other thing. I'm lost without her. And I'm lost without my guru, without my teacher. It becomes so ridiculous. So when the feeling of responsibility exists, all this disappears. You are responsible for your behavior, for the way you bring up your children, for the way you treat a dog, a neighbor, the nature. Everything is in your hands. Therefore, you have to become astonishingly careful what you do. Careful, not I must not do this and I must do that. Care. That means affection, that means consideration, diligence. All that goes with responsibility, which present society totally denies. When we begin to discuss the various gurus that are imported in this country, that's what they are doing, creating such mischief, making those people unfortunate, thoughtless people who want excitement, join them, do all kinds of ridiculous, nonsensical things. So we come back. Freedom implies responsibility. And therefore freedom, responsibility means care, diligence, not negligence, not doing what you want to do, which are what is happening in America. Do what you want to do. This permissiveness is just doing what you want to do, which is not freedom, which breeds irresponsibility. And I met the other day in Delhi, New Delhi, a girl, and she's become a Tibetan. You follow, sir?
Yes.
Born in America, being a Christian, brought up all that, throws all that aside, becomes a Tibetan, which is the same thing in different words.
Yes, as a Tibetan coming over here and doing it.
It's all
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I've known her some years. I said, where is your child? Was sick. Oh, she said, I've left him with other liberated Tibetans. I said, at 6, you are the mother? She said, yes, he's in very good hands. I come back next year and I ask, where is your child? Oh, he has become a Tibetan monk who is 7. He's 7 years old and has become a Tibetan monk. You understand, sir?
Oh, yes, I do.
The irresponsibility of it. Because the mother feels they know better than I do. I am a Tibetan and the lamas will help me to become.
It puts a rather sinister cast on that biblical statement, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it. There's a sinister note in that, isn't there?
Absolutely. So this is going on in the world all the time. And a man who is really serious negates that. Because he understands the implications, the inwardness of all that. So he has to deny it. It isn't a question of will or choice. He says that's too silly, too absurd. So freedom means responsibility and infinite care.
The phrase that you just spoke, infinite care,
Yes, sir.
it would be totally impossible to what we mean by a finite being unless the finite being did not betray the present.
I know.
With not betraying the present, it's a negative again. It's a negation again. With not betraying the present, which is not to say what will happen if it's not
Sir,
done.
the
Right.
word present, the now, is rather difficult.
Oh, yes. Yes. Philosophers love to call it the specious
And
present.
I don't know what philosophers say. I don't want to enter into all that speculative thinking. But the fact, what is the now? What is the act of now, the present? To understand the present, I must understand the past. Not history, I don't mean that.
No.
Understand myself as the past. I am the past.
In terms of what we said earlier about knowledge.
Yeah, I am that.
Yes.
Therefore, I must understand the present, the past, which is me. The me is the known. The me is not the unknown. I can imagine it's the unknown, but the fact is, the what is the known. That's me. I must understand myself. If I don't, the now is merely a continuation in modified form of the past. Therefore, it's not the now, not the present. Therefore, the me is the tradition, the knowledge, in all the complicated maneuvers, cunning, of all that, the despairs, the anxieties, the desire for success, fear, pleasure, all that is me.
Since we're still involved in our discussion about relationship here, might we return a moment to where we were with respect to education
Yes, sir.
and relationship? I want to be sure that I've understood you here. Let us say that one were fortunate enough to have a school where what you are pointing to was going on.
We are doing it. We have got several
Marvelous.
schools.
Marvelous. Well, we'll have a chance to talk about that, won't we?
Yes.
Good, good. If I'm current here, it would seem that if the teacher is totally present to the child, the child will feel this. The child won't have to be instructed in what this means then.
So, that
Is
means
that
really
right?
Yes, but one has to find out what is the relationship of the teacher to the student.
Yes. Yes, I quite see that.
What
of
is
course.
the relation? Is he merely an informer, in giving information to the child? Any machine can do that.
Oh, yes, the library is filled with it.
And any machine can.
Sure.
Or what is his relationship? Does he put himself on a pedestal up there and the student down there? Or is the relationship between the teacher and the student, is it a relationship in which there is learning on the part of the teacher as well as the student? Learning.
Yes.
Not I have learned and I'm going to teach you. Therefore, in that there is a division between the teacher and the student. But when there is learning on the part of the teacher as well as on the part of the student, there is no division. Both are learning.
Yes.
And therefore, that relationship brings about a companionship,
A sharing.
a sharing,
A sharing, yes.
and taking a journey together. And therefore, an infinite care on both sides. So it means, how is the teacher to teach mathematics or whatever it is to the student, and yet teach it in such a way that you awaken the intelligence in the child, not about mathematics.
No, of course not. No. Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
And how do you bring this act of teaching in which there is order? Because mathematics means order. The highest form of order is mathematics. Now, how will you convey to the student in teaching mathematics that there should be order in his life? Not order according to a blueprint. That's not order. You've heard?
Yes, yes.
Therefore, it's a creative teaching. Not create. It's a teaching. It's an act of learning all the time. So it's a living thing. Not something I've learned and I'm going to impart it to you.
This reminds me of a little essay I read many years ago by Simone Weil, which she called On Academic Studies. There's some title like that. And she said that every one who teaches a subject is responsible for teaching the student the relation between what they're studying and the
Their
students
life.
making a pure act of attention.
I know, of course. Of course.
And if this doesn't take place, the whole thing doesn't mean a thing.
So that
one stops to think, what would a teacher say if a student walked up and looked at them and said, fine, we're studying calculus right now. Now, you tell me how I am to see this that I'm pursuing in relation to my making a pure act of attention. It would be likely a little embarrassing, except for the most unusual person who had who had a grasp of the present. Yes.
So, sir, that's just it.
Yes.
What is the relationship of the teacher to the student in education? Is he training him merely to conform? Is he training him to cultivate mere memory, like a machine? Is he training, or is he helping him to learn about life? Not just about sex, the life, the whole immensity of living, the complexity of it, which we are not doing.
No. No, even in our language, we refer students to subject matters.
Yes, yes, yes.
They take this, they take that, they take the other. And in fact, there are prerequisites for taking these other things. And this builds a notion of education which has absolutely no relationship to what...
None at all.
And yet, amazingly, in the catalogs of colleges and universities across the country, there is in the first page or so a rather pious remark about the relation between their going to school and the values of civilization. And we have this whole, and that turns out to be learning a series of ideas. Well, I don't know whether they do it anymore, but they used to put the word character in there. They probably decided that's unpopular. They might very well have dropped that out by now. I'm not sure. Yes, I'm following what you say.
So, when you feel responsible, there is a flowering of real affection.
Mm-hmm.
A flowering of care for a child. And you don't train him or cultivate, condition him to go and kill another for the sake of your country. You follow? Mm-hmm. All that is involved in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we come to a point where a human being, as he is now, so conditioned to be irresponsible, how is that, what are the serious people going to do with the irresponsible people? You understand? Education, politics, religion, everything is making human beings irresponsible. I'm not exaggerating, this is so.
Oh no, you're not exaggerating. Yes.
Now, I see this as a human being. I say, what am I to do? You follow, sir? What is my responsibility in face of the irresponsible?
Well, if it's to start anywhere, as we say in English, it must start at home. It would have to
At
start
home.
with me.
So I say, that's the whole point. I have to start with me.
Right.
Then if from that question arises, then you can't do anything about the irresponsible.
No, exactly.
No, sir. Something strange takes place.
Well, I misunderstood you. I'm sorry. What I meant by replying there is that I don't attack the irresponsible.
No.
No. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Something strange takes place, which is consciousness the irresponsible consciousness is one thing,
Yes.
and the consciousness of responsibility is another. Now, when the human being is totally responsible, that responsibility unconsciously enters into the irresponsible mind. I don't know. Anything.
Yes, no, go ahead.
So look, I'm irresponsible. Suppose I'm irresponsible. You are responsible. You can't do anything consciously with me. Because the more you actively operate on me, I resist.
That's right. That's right. That's what I meant by no attacking.
Attacking. I react violently to you. I build wall against you. I hurt you. I do all kinds of things. But you see that you cannot do anything consciously, actively. Let's put it that way.
Designedly.
Planned, which is what they're all trying to do. But if you can talk to me, to my unconscious, because the unconscious is much more active,
Oh, yes.
much more alert, much more sees the danger much quicker than the conscious. So it's much more sensitive. So if you can talk to me, to the unconscious, that operates. So you don't actively, designedly attack the irresponsible. They have done it. And they have made a mess of it.
Oh, yes, it compounds, complicates the thing further.
Whereas if you talk to him, you talk to me, but your whole inward intention is to show how irresponsible I am, what his responsibility means. You follow?
Yes.
You care. In other words, you care for me.
Yes. I was chuckling because the complete and total opposite crossed my mind, and it just seemed so absolutely absurd. Yes. No. I'm.
You care for me
I do.
because I am irresponsible. You follow?
Exactly.
Therefore you care for me. And therefore you are watching not to hurt me, not to... You follow? In that way you penetrate very, very deeply into my unconscious. And that operates unknowingly when I'm... Suddenly I say, by God, how you follow? That operates. I have seen this, sir, in operation, because I've talked for 50 years, unfortunately or fortunately, to large audiences. Tremendous resistance to anything new.
Yes.
Say, if I say, don't read sacred books, which I say all the time, because you are just conforming. Obey. You're not living, you're living according to some book that you have read. Immediately there is resistance. Who are you to tell us?
Not to do something.
Not to do this or to do that. So I say, all right. See, I go on pointing out. I'm not trying to change them. I'm not doing propaganda, because I don't believe in propaganda. It's a lie. So I say, look what you do when you are irresponsible. You are destroying your children. You send them to war, to be killed and to be maimed and to kill and to maim. Is that act of love? Is that affection? Is that care? Why do you do it? And I go into it. They get bewildered. They don't know what to do. So it begins to slowly seep in.
Well, at first, it's such a shock. It sounds positively subversive to some.
Oh, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely subversive.
Of course. Yes, but
So we enter into now something which is my relationship to another when there is total responsibility in which freedom and care go together, I do not, the mind has no image in relationship at all. Because the image is the division. Where there is care, there is no imagination, no image.
This would lead us into what perhaps later we could pursue, love.
Oh, that's a tremendous thing.
Yes, yes.
We have to go
Could
into
we lay a little few words before that? I don't know necessarily that next time we would do that, but it would come naturally.
Yes.
I've been listening to what you've been saying, and it's occurred to me that if one is responsible and care is continuous with that, one would not fear. One could not fear.
Yes, sir.
Not would not. Could not.
Is not
Could
capable.
not fear.
No, but you see, that means really one must understand fear.
One must understand fear.
And
Yes.
also the pursuit of pleasure. Those two go together. They're not two separate things.
What I have what I've learned here in our discussion is that what it is, if I followed you correctly, that we should turn ourselves toward understanding, is not what are called values.
Oh no.
We don't understand love. We understand all those things which we catch ourselves into,
Which are
that
not.
militate against any possibility whatsoever. This is what's so hard to hear, that to be told that there just is no possibility.
Yes, sir.
This produces immense terror. Do you think next time when we converse together, we could begin at that point where we could discuss fear?
Oh yes.
Good.
But sir,
Good.
before we enter fear, there is something which we should discuss very carefully. What is order in freedom?
Fine. Fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.